Welcome to the Autism ADHD podcast. It's the place to be for neurodiversity affirming parents and professionals. I'm your host, Holly Blanc-Moses, the mom neurodivergent therapist. Here we chat about emotional regulation, mental health, social support, executive functioning, learning, and more, all aimed at empowering us to support kids and teens with compassion and understanding. I'm thrilled that you joined me today, and I've got some pretty exciting news to share with you. For those rock star therapists listening right now, I've created continuing education training that is tailor-made for you. Take a deep dive into cutting-edge strategies that you can start using today. The CEs you've wanted for so long are finally here. Go to hollyblancmoses.com/CE training and sign up. You are going to love it. The link is also available in the show notes. Now, if you are a parent or educator listening and you know a therapist or a psychologist that is passionate about supporting kids and teens, I greatly appreciate it if you could pass on this great news. Thanks so much again for your support, and let's get started. Welcome everyone back to the Autism ADHD podcast. Today is going to be very different. I hope you caught the last episode with the amazing Elizabeth LaForest, because we talked about neurodivergent women and their nervous systems, and also a bit about chronic illness. So I am putting it all out there. Elizabeth is going to interview me about my own chronic illness journey. I do not know what Elizabeth is going to ask me. I have not prepared for this, so keep that in mind. This is really hard for me to talk about because it's been a part of my life that I have hidden. Okay, Elizabeth, let's do this.
Thank you, Holly. I want to say, this is a first for me that I have for years been talking with neurodivergent women about their anxiety, burnout, and chronic illness. And I've interviewed a lot of women about their different experiences and they're sharing their stories. And this is the first time that I've been invited onto someone's podcast to interview them on their podcast. And I'm very honored and excited. And I hope I'm able to support you in sharing your story in the way that feels most authentic and aligned for you. And I just want to remind you that if at any point, if I ask you something or if we get onto a topic that feels unsafe for you, that you have full permission to pause the interview, to push back, to say, no, I don't want to talk about that. And we can just move on to something else. Okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's a good reminder for all of us when we're having a conversation with someone, especially if it is something that's difficult to talk about. Just knowing that up front, that you have that autonomy, that you can say, I'm not in a place that I can answer that right now, or can we talk about that another time? That makes conversations more doable. Because you can see how people would just avoid them. If they're painful, let's just avoid them. But when you say, just let me know, and we can either move on or we can take a break, whatever that looks like for you. So I think that's kind of just a good reminder when we're talking to our kids, we're talking to our partners, our friends.
Yeah. And I think also a lot of neurodivergent women don't have that experience. They have the opposite experience of feeling pressured or feeling like they have to answer, feeling like they have to say exactly the right thing and overriding their own internal sense of boundaries for others. And so, oftentimes as you're going through the healing journey, as you're opening up more like you are here, we don't always think about that. We don't always think about, oh, I have permission to say no. I don't have to do this.
I think that's almost part of my stress that contributed to this illness as well, because we
It
feel like
absolutely
we
is.
can't have any boundaries.
Yeah.
Can't say no. We have to be people pleasers. We have to do everything for everyone who asks because that's how we've been shaped to sort of survive and make it through.
Yeah. And in my experience and in talking with so many neurodivergent women, there are very specific points in your life where most neurodivergent women experience that onset or worsening of chronic illness symptoms. And so I think it'd be great to start with your journey in terms of where did that start for you? What was happening in your life at that time when you started to develop these chronic illness symptoms?
Even before then, and that's the case for a lot of us neurodivergent folks, is we have this story of the beginning of the symptoms that we
Hmm.
noticed or observed, but it started so
So long before
much
that.
earlier.
Yep.
And that's just such a big part. And that's why you and
Yeah.
I do the work we do too. And when I am working with someone, especially children and teens, seeing, the impact of all of this stress that has on them, and there's only so much your body can take before it
Yeah.
cannot do anymore. And it's being harmed when your nervous system is constantly on
And
survival mode. I was a freshman in college, and I remember going to the bathroom and I saw blood. Why is blood coming out of the place it's not supposed to, right? So, it's fine. The fine kicks in.
yeah.
When you have all that prior conditioning of your whole
Hmm.
life that you don't talk about certain things. And I didn't really have anyone that I felt safe
Hmm.
sharing this information with because of my history with hearing you're dramatic, you're blowing things out of proportion,
Yeah.
minimizing my experience and understanding that when things happen to me that I can't tell because why would I? Why
That's
would
very
I?
common for both being neurodivergent and being a woman, that you're trained essentially that, oh, whatever you're experiencing is not as bad as you think it is, that to kind of distrust your own interpretation of what's happening to you. And also, if something bad does actually happen to you, that it must have been your fault somehow. So it creates a sense of when something happens, even if you're younger and you do speak up about those things, you get that reinforcement of, no, it's not what you think it is. Oh, it's not as bad as you think it is. It's going to be fine. Just suck it up. Keep pushing through. Everybody else has had to deal with this and you'll be fine. That kind of gaslighting. And it makes total sense that when you started having that, you probably felt like you had no one to turn to, and you probably felt like, oh, I'll just have to figure this out on my own. Maybe this is something that other people are also experiencing and just not talking about because I know there's also that I had that assumption so many times of, oh, everybody must experience this, right? This must be a normal thing that other people have.
Exactly. This is so common in people that we work with too. You do start to question yourself, even if you feel like something is going wrong. This makes us incredibly vulnerable to abuse.
Yeah.
You've learned that even if you have some kind of reaction in your body, like the gut feeling, some people call that, to
Hmm.
not trust it. You learn
Yeah.
to ignore, you learn to try to figure it out yourself because no one else is going to help you. It's a really tough situation to be in. And still, essentially, I'm a teenager.
Yeah.
Being 18, yes, you're legally an adult, but I was a teen.
Hmm.
I'm living on my own, at college with a roommate and dealing with all kinds of stress.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't know what to do. So this had happened for 4 or 5 months before I mentioned it to my mom. We grew up, but you didn't go to the doctor
Hmm.
unless your eye is falling out of your head or something. I've had scars that should have had stitches.
Yeah.
Rub some dirt on it. Don't be a baby kind of thing. That was also contributing to me wanting to act like it didn't matter and didn't want to tell. So I didn't have experience with this is what you do. You contact the doctor.
Yeah.
This is what you should expect to happen. It really came into play too, my people pleasing, my
Hmm.
programming to not question.
Yeah.
Plus a doctor, that's somebody who I've been taught they know everything. They have
Yeah.
authority over you. Again, I was a teenager, right?
Yeah. Perfect recipe for a strong fawn response.
I had gone to see a gastroenterologist who, looking back, oh my goodness, he was terrible.
Oh.
Um, I was so scared. It was all really, really tough. It's almost like I would disassociate in some ways. There was no sense of my body even being mine anymore.
Yeah.
It was betraying me.
Hmm.
It was getting in my way. I didn't want to tell anyone. And I was working so hard in school because I do have, I think, undiagnosed learning differences.
You didn't have a diagnosis for your neurodivergence at that time, right?
I didn't.
Yeah. So you're
Now,
undiagnosed. Did you, and you were either undiagnosed or misdiagnosed for what was happening physically for you. And you were in this very competitive college program. All of these things combining.
the recipe for disaster
Yeah. And then
because
the interesting thing that you mentioned, and I just want to go back to this if that's okay, and we can move on if you want to. But something that you mentioned that it feels really important to highlight is that unfortunately, when it comes to these physical chronic illnesses and the medical community, the tests and the processes that they use to try and identify what's happening so often um, cause more stress and harm for your body. And I see this in multiple chronic illnesses, whether it's the intestinal or POTS or you have like the stress tests and those kind of things and going through this medical system in and of itself and having to deal with the things that you had to deal with in and of itself, it's causing more trauma. And it kind of reminds me of this concept that is talked about in therapy and that kind of stuff of re-traumatizing someone where you're coming in to get help, you're coming in to get answers to move forward, and instead what's happening is you're being re-traumatized or having trauma loaded on top of that, and you are in this place where in every area of your life it sounds like you were experiencing high stress, high stakes, high trauma, and you didn't know where to turn. Like you didn't have anyone, it sounds like, that you could really talk to about it or who could help make sense of what was happening. And so all of that is still just getting internalized and it's got to go somewhere.
it's got to go somewhere. My body was done.
Hmm.
I walked in the main office at the psych department my first week and saw this plaque and it was shiny. What's this shiny thing? Must be
Hmm.
important. It was a plaque with students' names on it. And each student had their own gold bar with their name and the year. And I found out that it was an award for the top psychology student. And it had to be voted on by all the faculty. This is like a very big deal.
Yeah.
And it was one person out of, I went to a huge university, one person out of the entire graduating class.
Yeah.
And I remember just looking at it and told myself, that will be me in 4 years.
Hmm.
My name has to be on there in
Yeah.
4 years. And that's 4 years from now, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I just started college. All these things were happening.
Yeah.
But that has to happen because if that happens, then that means that I'm not bad. It means I'm not stupid. It means I'm not lazy. All the things that I had been called. That will finally prove my worth.
Yeah. And
And so,
validate your identity.
yeah.
You identified from a very young age as you were like, I'm going to be a psychologist. This is what I'm going to do. And here is this perfect, shiny sign to the entire world that you are who you think you are, no matter what
Yeah.
other people say. And
And I
you're going
think
to get it.
that was part of it. I think it was less to
hmm
do with that than it was me proving all
That
of
you're
the
not bad.
wrong that people
Yeah.
said to me. Like that would do it. That would finally maybe do it. Maybe
Yeah.
that's it. Um, I remember my first semester I took professions in psychology or something. It's one that everyone has to take that wants to graduate the psychology degree. And I remember my professor, she had said, if you want your PhD in clinical psych, you have to be constantly volunteering. You need all A's. You have to be a superstar. You have to have publications, or you don't stand a chance, essentially.
Yeah.
I knew it was hard. I know that it's really, really tough to get in, but I guess I didn't think of it that way until she said it.
Yeah.
So, what does that mean? That means I have to try even harder than I
hmm
initially thought. I have to push my body even more
Yeah.
past the limits. Of course, got a teaching assistantship in that very class the next semester. I was teaching breakout sessions. I was teaching
Yeah.
juniors and seniors, and I was still a
Yeah.
freshman teaching those classes because I have to
hmm
do it. Again, my body was breaking down, and my
Yeah.
mental health
hmm
was too. It was this immense pressure. And some people might look at it and say, well, you put it on yourself, more blaming, self blaming.
Yeah.
But really, it wasn't that. It was put
hmm
on me in a lot
Yeah.
of ways because everything I tried to do didn't work to
Yeah.
prove my worthiness to these people that were supposed to love me unconditionally, right?
I
And
think there's even another layer to that of it not being your fault, which is that you were never taught a healthy, safe way to metabolize all of that stress. You were never taught that. You were doing the best you could with what had worked for you up until that point. The pushing, the masking, the all of that stuff. And that's what happens to so many neurodivergent women. They develop these coping mechanisms that work for a time, but because they were never taught how to fully metabolize and healthily metabolize and safely metabolize all of that stress, even when someone's told, oh, you need to manage your stress better, it's not accessible to them. They're not able to utilize those tools. They're not able to actually do that because they don't have that foundation inside of them. You didn't have that. You were doing absolutely everything you could in terms of survival, and which was tied to this, I have to prove that I'm not bad, right? It was absolutely not your fault. I would say not only was it not your fault, but if you were to go back to that version of you, if you today were to go and talk to that version of you, I don't know if that version of you would even be able to hear what you have to tell her because it's such a different way of looking at and moving through the world than what she had experienced her entire life.
that can be powerful for people to say, what would you do? The person you are now, the experience you have, the wisdom you have now,
hmm
and everything that I would want to say to
What
that
would you want to
younger
tell her?
version of me is, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for what you've been through. And it wouldn't have been like, you don't have to do this. It would be more of just acknowledging how it got there. Because we're not just saying, oh, yeah, okay, you're right. I'm going to look at this completely different. We need to think about that too. Like when we're parenting or we're interacting with someone, it's not that easy, or everyone would just do it.
Yeah.
There's reasons that we do the things that we do.
hmm
It's not so easy. All because you share something or tell somebody something doesn't mean all of a sudden everything's different for that person.
Yeah.
It just continued to get worse. I was in and out of the hospital. And when I say in and out of the hospital, most people will know when they were in the hospital. If you were to interview 100 people on the street, a lot of them have never been in the hospital. And if they have, they'd be like, oh, yeah, I had to go in for this laparoscopic, whatever.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital so much in those 4 years that I literally do not remember. I could not tell you the
Hmm.
number because it was at the very least 3 to 4 times a semester. And then in the summer too. And what was really hard, I had professors, they didn't believe me. Like,
Hmm.
no, I want to be here. I would much rather be in
Yeah.
class than in the hospital. I'd had some professors say, I want to talk to the doctor that you saw in the hospital. Things you couldn't even do now.
Yeah.
That's so inappropriate. So
Yeah.
I would also not only be sick, not only have to catch up on a tremendous amount of work, not only have to be the best student and get
I
all
have to
A's,
convince the
have to now
teachers.
then
Yeah.
convince them I was actually in the
Yeah.
hospital, then hunt down my doctors in the hospital to be able to provide their information. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah. Which adds another layer of embarrassment and shame and executive functioning and time and energy.
And then you have people blame you. He's an ex-uncle now, but he would say, all you have to do, Holly, is drink V8.
I think we've all been like we've had those hopefully people either on the internet or in real life who are
Yeah.
like, just do this and it'll be fine.
You're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong.
Hmm.
I just think it is the most horrible thing to do to someone. Maybe it is well meaning, but it's still blaming them. That is the very, very last thing that was going to help. It's frustrating. Then add on all the tests, all the trying to act like I'm fine and not pass out. I mean, I would have to get blood transfusions and then still show up for the test at 8 a.m. the next day
Yeah.
if I had to get a blood transfusion the day before. So it was just really tough.
And you pushed and you got to the end of your 4
4 years,
years. And did you get the shiny plaque?
I did. I
And how
did.
did it feel?
Because the university was so big, they had a separate department graduation. And there were a ton of people there. And I was the president of the psychology honors society,
Yeah.
of course, right? I had to give a talk during it and I was tripping all over myself because I was so nervous and I sat right back down. But they didn't tell. It was a surprise. We didn't know who was going to get the award. I thought I was going to pass out. And
Yeah.
of course, I was hoping it was me because I had done everything
Mhm.
because I felt like I had to. I don't know if I told you this. I almost didn't graduate on
I don't
time.
know.
You had to have so many credits in the College of Arts and Sciences that weren't psychology. I
Yeah.
had so many psychology research credits. I had too many. So they weren't going to let me graduate.
Sorry, you did this too well, which I think is another autistic experience of like, you did
Exactly.
exactly what we asked, but you did it so much better than we thought you would that now you're going to be punished for it.
Exactly. I had to make a meeting with the dean and beg him to sign off on this paper that let me graduate because I had done so many more. Because every semester I was doing research for at least two professors in addition to everything else. As an undergrad, I had 6 publications.
Mm.
It was ridiculous when I think back at it. But the professor was going to be announcing who the shiny thing went to, right?
Yeah.
My heart was beating so fast, it's like I couldn't even hear what she was saying
Yeah.
because this is 4 years waiting to see if I was going
Not
to get my
waiting
name.
4 years of working your ass
Okay,
off.
no, you're right. You're right. There was no waiting.
There
There
was
was
no
not waiting for
waiting.
1 second. And I feel like I had to try so much harder because it felt like I had to try so much harder. I think because I didn't know, I was never tested. I think I have lower working memory
Yeah.
and processing speed, like a lot of ADHDers.
And that those things that, neurodivergent people tend to have when it comes to executive functioning, they get so much worse when you are in burnout, when you're experiencing chronic illness, when your body is in this state. All of those things get harder. And so not only did you already have a hard time with some of those things, but then you're trying to do all of that while you are intensely busy, while you are having medical crisis after medical crisis, while you're having all of these expectations. It's like all of those things are going to make those executive functioning skills less accessible to you.
That's exactly right. When I look back, I can picture myself walking down the hallway. So I would have my book open. I had every single book with me. Now, this is
Hmm.
pre-computer, everybody. So you had giant, huge textbooks. I had all of them with me all of the time in my backpack because I knew I would
Hmm.
forget something.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would go backwards because it would weigh more than me. I would open the book, like if there's a test, and I'm walking down the hallway and I'm knocking into people because it'll be gone. If I don't see this information exactly, if I
Yeah.
don't have it right there in front of my
I
eyes.
was the same way. I was
Yeah,
like a cram right before the test, like the hour leading up to it is like that's when I'm going to gain the information and hold on to it long enough to pass the test.
exactly. My face would be in it. Of course, the
Yep.
professor would be like, Holly, please shut your book. We have to take, because I'm just like, if I look at it long enough, my working memory, I know that now, but not then.
Yeah.
Back to the ceremony, the professor stood at the podium describing the person who was chosen for the award and their accomplishments. I still didn't know for sure, even after she said all these details.
Because the way other people perceive you and the way that you are experiencing the world and experiencing yourself, when you're that high masking, it can be so different and almost shocking to hear how other people perceive you compared to what you're experiencing.
Yeah, there's such a discrepancy there.
Yeah.
She's saying all these like lovely things. I'm thinking, oh, I don't know. Is it me? What's going on? I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm like, please just say it. I feel like it was taking forever. I thought maybe it is me because she had said, oh, the person who is getting this award had completed their honors thesis as an undergrad. It's very intensive, and most people never do it for obvious reasons. When she said this person is the youngest student in the history of the honors program to defend their thesis. And I thought, I think that's me because that's true about me, but I still didn't know. But she did announce my name, and I walked up, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So apparently, I was expected to stand next to her as she continued to say things about me, but I didn't. I just left. I'm serious. I can't even imagine what that looked like. I didn't know what to do. I was so nervous.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah. At the end of that ceremony, I just started to cry, and me crying, and I think this is the case for a lot of neurodivergent girls and women. If we do, it's like silent, like nobody would ever know unless they're looking at you. If I cry, it's very rare. And if I do, it's just these very silent tears that nobody would even notice if they weren't
That's
looking at
very
me.
common.
They were coming down. I wasn't making any noises or anything. The professor who had given me the award came over. I guess she noticed that I had tears coming down. And she said, I know it can be really sad. Graduation can be really sad. I guess the autistic part of me was like, no, that's not it. I'm just so thankful it's over. It's finally over. I just started crying more. She was so confused.
Oh.
I was like, no, I'm just so glad it's all over
Yeah.
because it had been so hard. I mean, here
Yeah.
I'm this kid essentially,
It'd been killing you. It
literally
literally
killing.
was killing you. Yeah.
I'm dying. And I still had to prove that I wasn't bad
Yeah.
while I'm literally dying, right?
After that, you went on to work.
Yeah, I worked for a couple of years. I worked for Marshall University's the Autism Training Center, which is fantastic because I knew what I want the population I wanted to work with.
Yeah.
Not a lot
Still
of
not diagnosed
opportunity.
yourself.
I really struggled with taking the GRE for graduate
Hmm.
school because I had those undiagnosed learning disabilities and I was so anxious. When you're so anxious, you
Yeah.
can't access information. I was just telling you earlier how I set up testing for my youngest son that I homeschool, and that's going to make him comfortable so he can access the information that he knows.
Yeah.
So it was like the opposite. There were no accommodations. People were confused. Holly, how
Yeah.
can you have accomplished all these things, yet the score looks like this? This isn't you.
Yeah.
This doesn't represent you.
But it did.
But it
It did
did.
represent you. It just didn't line up with the mask that they were interpreting as you.
Then it becomes also my fault
And
again.
well, you're able to do all this. Maybe if you just studied harder, if you
Try hard
just,
enough.
yep.
Didn't try
I
hard.
know you're capable of doing this if you just try hard enough.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I paid for all of my schooling. That was also hard. I'm battling this terrible illness. I had like 3 jobs doing all these things. So I go on to graduate school, clinical psych program that was incredibly intensive. Of course, I didn't tell them I was sick. I was scared to tell anyone. I didn't want them to
yeah.
think I couldn't do the work. I
I have
moved.
a question for you. You've gone through this program. You are working with autistic individuals, right? You are surrounded by disability, by people who are disabled. Was there at any point at this time in your life where you recognized that you were disabled?
I understood that things were different for me, but I was so stuck in the idea where I had to prove myself because I felt so worthless and
Yeah.
unlovable. I was just so stuck in that. My first semester of graduate school, it had gotten so bad. I was maxed out on prednisone and nothing was getting better. So I had to leave a month and a half in after starting. It had just gotten so bad that my large intestines was just destroyed. Part of it was literally dead. I was so scared. I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew that I just wanted to be back in school. I wanted to be like other people. I didn't want to have
Yeah.
to live like this anymore. I was so scared too because I thought so little of myself that how was I also then going to handle having this ostomy, having a pouch outside of my body? And even though they said that they're going to try to reverse it, my body is literally forever changed. That was really tough. I was in the hospital for almost a month. Then I was finally going to leave, dealing with having this thing on me, my body
Yeah.
completely changed, feeling so bad, not have been moving
Yeah.
essentially so long,
Enormous adjustments.
massive, and figuring out how I can get back to another state and
Mm.
continue graduate school.
Yeah.
I told my doctor before I was discharged, I said, I'm having a hard time breathing. And he's like, oh, you're just excited about finally getting out of here, right?
Let me tell you how you're feeling.
Exactly. Yeah. So they did discharge me. And the next day, and of course, like I could barely walk, my feet turned purple and I began to have even harder time breathing.
Yeah.
So to go back into the hospital, a different hospital this time, where they immediately knew, oh, you've been in the hospital for a month. They did a VQ scan. Awesome. Pulmonary embolia clots shoot through your heart. And if you don't die from that, they land in your lungs. And
Fabulous.
most people do die from that.
Yeah.
I thought, are you kidding me? I've been through all of this and this is what I'm going to die from because I hadn't moved in so long. I was in a wheelchair for a while, had oxygen. I went back to school.
I want to ask because I think this is so like I deeply resonate with this kind of experience or feeling of like you're going through all of this stuff. You're having what by any standard would be considered extreme medical procedures and crisis and having this need for recovery and healing. And also, that's not at all where your head is. Your head is, how do I get back to school? Like, you're like, okay, I just need to get back. I need to get back on track. I need to get back to how things were. I need to get back to the plan. And I'm curious how much of your frame of mind at that point was even taking into consideration or aware of the level of stress and trauma that you were experiencing.
I was shaped to suck it up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't change the narrative. It doesn't say where there's a limit because you never learn there's a limit. You suck up
Yes.
everything, whether
Yep.
it's sensory discomfort, you suck it up. I'm
Yep.
struggling learning this, you suck it up. This person is hurting me, you suck it up. There was no boundary. There was no way to
Yeah.
say this is too much.
You didn't even have the trust in your body. Like, even if you had been aware of that, you didn't have the trust in your body to be able to be like, oh, I trust that my body's telling me this and I'm going to respond to it and hold this limit, right?
Exactly. Again, all I could think of is I got to get back. I've got to prove that I can do this. I got to push past this because I was never
Yeah.
allowed to say this is too much. It,
Yeah.
so I had to make up all the work.
Yeah.
I started doing that in the hospital. It was a lot. I had to make up all my tests, I had to make up all the assignments, and it was already more than people can handle. Finally, after all this, about 8 or 9 months later, they did reverse it. They made what they call a J pouch. It's almost like taking down some of your small bowel and
Yeah.
trying to recreate a colon. I just wanted to look normal. I'm a young woman, right?
Yeah.
I lost my body in all of this. This thing I'm in hates me, right?
Yeah.
I was in the hospital over and over again. That didn't change. Sometimes I'd be so sick, I'd have to call a classmate to drive me because I couldn't drive. I spent the weekends in the hospital on IV nutrition just to get through the next week. You just think, how do I get through this next moment? But when I step back
Yeah.
and look at that, it's
Yeah.
horrifying. It just became how I had to try to live.
You were still steeped in all those stress chemicals. You were still in that situation,
The
right?
same situation, I would try to walk to class and I would have an accident on the way to class. So I would
Yeah.
have to go home and shower and change and come back late. And then, of course, the professor calls me out in front of everyone because I'm late. I had a locker in the department to have like several changes of clothes. Nothing stopped. I had more clients than anyone in this psych department. And I think because I had a lot of experience and I guess they saw something in me. And of course, I would never say no. Holly, this person's really tough. We know you can, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'll do
yeah.
that.
So then there's practicums plus the clinic to run,
Mhm.
plus the clinic clients, plus all the schoolwork, plus the health.
At
The
what point did it become too
oh,
much for you? At
I
what
don't know.
point did your body finally be like, no, we're done? And you weren't able to push past it?
That's not happened yet.
Yeah, I love how you add the yet.
No one's ever asked me that question. Yeah, no one's ever asked me that. Not yet. I'm moving in that direction, which is good because let's see, Friday I had an infusion. That was about
Yeah.
2 hours. Yesterday, I had a 6 hour infusion. And I was mad at myself because I didn't have a podcast episode to put out. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? I usually have them out on
Yeah.
Wednesday mornings. And I thought for a second, I've been in the hospital all day today. Maybe that's okay. Maybe I can let that be okay.
Yeah.
I'm working towards recognizing my first thought of what's wrong with you? You should have had this done. And being able to take a step back and noticing
Yeah.
this is a lot. And being okay to say that because I was never shown that it was okay to say that. There was no limit. Because if I can't keep going, then something's wrong with me. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm starting to be kinder to myself, right? If I was having to run out and change clothes, nobody else had to do that. And it's humiliating too, having to not eat or drink all day until I got home that night.
Mm-hmm.
And even that wasn't enough. I'd still have accidents, but
Yeah.
to have to plan your day that way.
And on top of that, you'd also be dehydrated and you would also not have the nutrients that your body needed to function. Like, yeah.
Plus, not having a large intestine, a lot of my small bowel is gone. I also can't absorb a lot of nutrients anyway. And I'm so much more likely to be dehydrated than other people
Yeah.
because I'm not absorbing the water. So it was, and plus, I'm supposed to sit there and be able to learn and think and
Yeah.
do all the things with no food or water.
You mentioned how even still that your go-to reaction is to beat yourself up.
Yeah.
It's to hold yourself to that standard, to judge yourself. And I know you and I have talked about um, motivation and how so often for neurodivergent women, we have this framework and that gets internalized and that becomes the tool we use to kind of whip ourselves and to keep going, even when we don't realize it. So I love that you are having that awareness and that you have the capacity now to not just recognize that it's happening after the fact, but to be able to step back and be like, wait a second, I want something different. I want a different relationship with myself. I deserve kindness. I deserve space. I deserve accommodations. And I feel like for a lot of neurodivergent women, especially high masking neurodivergent women who have said yes, who have pushed, who have alt for so long, it can be really, really hard to shift into a framework of accommodating yourself.
It really is. I want people to understand when we talk about self advocating, those are complex things.
Yeah.
And it goes against everything that you've been taught, and it goes
Hmm.
against everything you've done to survive.
Yeah.
This fawning, right,
Yeah.
is a lot of times. I'm so sorry. One second. Speaking of what your body needs, Sammy, the support dog, needs some water. All right.
Body needs are important,
Exactly. It's like he does better at that than I do.
right?
Expressing his
Yeah.
bodily needs.
But he hasn't been trained to ignore them his whole life.
That's true. And I listen and believe him and don't shame
Yeah,
him for it.
exactly.
Don't tell him to suck it up. I'll just give him some water. We were talking about graduate school.
Last we left off, Holly was dying in graduate
Dying
school,
in
trying
graduate
to prove her
school
worth.
to prove my worth. That's exactly, in a nutshell, that's exactly what it was. It's wild when I think back of how strange that is because I mentioned nobody else I knew had to go in the hospital, like literally be checked in to get nutrients through their vein through the weekend so I can try to show back up. I also mentioned that the J pouch they had created was not working. And really, that's what I was so excited about. I'm this young woman. Yes, I have a lot of scars on me. They open you all up, kind of looks like a roadmap. But I thought, at least I don't have to deal with this pouch because people joke about it. I didn't
It's a
realize
lot of
that, like,
stigma.
yeah, there really is. And how disgusting. I've seen jokes on TV and I just have to stop watching. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why does this have to happen? People already feel so bad in their bodies. Like, why is this funny? It's hard.
And I imagine it was even worse for you when you were that age, because now there's like a certain amount of like awareness on social media. And a lot of people will go their whole life and might not meet somebody who has that going
Right.
on for them, right? Like, or is not aware that they know somebody who has that going on for them. And so they're just not exposed to it. But now there's more exposure and even positive exposure through social media because you have people sharing their stories and stuff. That wasn't a thing at all at
Mm-mm.
that time. So probably most of the people you're interacting with had never encountered this. And if they had, it was only through jokes and negative stigma.
Even this ridiculous sort of insensitive things. I didn't have any money in graduate school, obviously, and my teeth were breaking because of all the prednisone. So I thought, well, I need to find this dentist because they're literally jagged and becoming a problem because I'm already on immunosuppressants. I remember going to the dentist and he said, I see that you have Crohn's disease. That's on your folder. Again, out of state. I've never been the dentist there. He said, I've always said that there are two things that could happen to me that I would rather be dead. And one of them was to have cancer of the jaw. I can't remember what it's called, but when you have to have
Yeah.
your lower jaw removed. And the other was to have a bag because he would rather die than look like that.
I think that speaks to like the intense ableism that he learned, that he saw, and the intense prejudice for him. He must have seen, oh, like people who are worthless who have these experiences. And then the fact that he felt so casual saying that to you is just
Because
mind-boggling,
it
but not
is,
surprising.
it is, and he didn't know.
Yeah.
Me having Crohn's disease is one thing, but having a pouch, and I say that because the word bag has been paired with so many negative things
Hmm.
that I don't like to
Yeah.
use that word. It was really sad that I'm stuck in front of this person who thinks that I am not worth anything, especially for me struggling with my worth anyway. When you're surrounded by these people that you also have to feel like you have to keep your illness a secret because
Hmm.
if they know, they're going to think you can't do things.
Yeah.
They're going to make assumptions about you, and then it just swings in the whole other direction. Like I said, they had put the J pouch in. All tons of stuff happened in graduate school, lots of hospitalizations, all kinds of terrible things. Then I left my for my internship and I went ahead and moved. There weren't a lot of options of working with autistic individuals. Back then
Hmm.
there wasn't. I moved to a small town where there was a developmental center and there were 8 cottages that I would work and go between these cottages. I would have clothing at these cottages that I can access quickly so I can change quickly.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like, oh, this happened once a week. I'm talking about multiple times a day that
Yeah.
I would be running and having to change again without eating or drinking until I got home at night. Just the way of adjusting my life, but would never mention that to someone. I couldn't function and nauseated a lot. I had to run and, was sick in the bathroom quite a bit. After I went to a job in Tennessee, and I was one of the kind of regional people that did consultations, that type of thing. I was just kept getting sick, 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 sick. Then I had a permanent ostomy then after that. And I've had so many more surgeries where I've had to have more bowel out of small bowel. Then also my bowels like stretched many times to try to put surgery off a little bit longer because I've had so many obstructions, which are incredibly dangerous. There is a football size mass in my pelvis as we speak, where I was dealing with a fistula from that, which is when your body tunnels a hole through itself.
Mm.
Don't want that, everyone, just in case. I mean,
In case you
hello.
were curious.
In case you were curious, you do not want that. So I've had many surgeries at the Mayo Clinic. My surgeons now are all and have been for the last couple of decades in Minnesota because I'm so complicated that it's hard
Hmm.
to manage what's happening for me. I even forgot the other day because I had to write down some kind of surgical history. I've had an ovary removed that I forgot about.
I feel like
Like
that's
a
like
thing.
also a very neurodivergent thing. Because like for me, I was technically diagnosed with ADHD when I was 11 and completely forgot about it until
Yeah.
I was like 30. But I think that's, it's so common for the neurodivergent brain when you have all these different experiences. It's easier to recall information that's like more central to what's happening right now. And so like all of these different experiences that you've had, you just kind of forget. For a while, I forgot that I went to China. Like, like it's just one of those things. And when you have all of those specifically medical situations, they blend together over time. When you've been in the hospital as much as you have been in the hospital, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what happened. They did something at this point.
And the tests, right? I can't tell you how many CTs, MRI, like
Mhm.
literally cannot tell you. Again, they're also across states. It was really tough, like just every day, sort of managing those things. Like you were saying, you kind of disassociate, you kind of put that over there
Yeah.
because that's not going to prove your worth. Now I had to work like double time, right? Not only did I have non-diagnosed learning differences, but also the ADHD, also being autistic and trying to manage like even interactions and all these
Yeah.
other things that were extremely difficult to manage on top of that.
I'm curious when you got your permanent pouch. I'm curious about what that experience was for you, like mentally and physically. How did that feel for you?
It was just a massive loss, like just complete grief.
Yeah.
And to be so sad about something that is like literally losing parts of your body. There is no
Yeah.
reconstruction. There is no fake intestines to put back in there. I was really sad. I was dating somebody at the time, and there was a lot of fear there because I had already felt so bad about
Mm.
myself aside from the illness.
Yeah.
So if you don't feel like you're worth anything, and I know I need to work on owning it. I didn't feel like I was worth anything. And now on top of it, I can't have kids. I have this thing hanging off me that I don't even
Mhm.
want to deal with
Yeah.
because I would just look at it and cry.
Yeah.
It was hard to manage because it didn't work. Our medical supplies are so much better now, but they're not without their problems.
Right.
I remember Mayo has this great program. There was a young woman working there, and she had a pouch herself. She was about my age. And when they have staff, like people who work at the Mayo Clinic, they can sign up to volunteer for this program where they get to meet with people who are facing this surgery or who had just had a surgery and talk about their own story. And I think that's a beautiful and healing thing to do.
Yeah.
I had talked to her about it and she was great. It was a little bit different. She had colitis. So when your colon is removed, then essentially you're supposed to be cured. There's no more disease. But with Crohn's, there is no end to the disease. Neither one are good. Believe me, we
No.
don't want either one of them. It was super helpful. And I think that's why it's helpful too for people with lived experience to learn from them and talk with them because there's something really different about being able to talk to someone whose body looks like mine. The
Yeah.
one that people said they'd rather die than have, right?
Yeah.
It was hard. It was hard managing it.
Yeah.
despite having the pouch. I still had Crohn's, still fighting that, still having to go to work and pull off the side and be sick and get back in the car because that's just how it is. That's how you learn to live.
At what point did you become aware of that grief? Because I think that grief is a very common part of the neurodivergent woman's story, whether it's a late diagnosis or chronic illness or whatever it is. There's always um, there's often a huge component of grief, and I find that it can often go unrecognized for a long time as well, especially if you're in this frame of mind of like trying to still perform or still function or still meet expectations. But not everyone. Some people recognize that they're grieving right away. So I'm just curious, in your journey, what was your awareness level of your grief around all of that?
Because I had grown up, like literally formed my foundations to understand that I have to put it over here. I think it was grief, and I think of it as almost like sprinkles of grief. Sometimes
Mm.
it would come in big, but then I'd have to get it together right away. So
Kind of compartmentalize it.
I wouldn't let
Gotcha.
myself sit in it because
Yeah.
first of all, my schedule didn't allow. And
Right.
because I had to do everything. I had to prove that I was not
Yeah.
worthless and lazy and all the things, right? The night before they had removed my large intestine, I remember talking to a friend of mine on the phone and I was crying. This is a good friend. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And it was almost silly because I didn't have a choice. Well, I mean, there was a choice. I could die,
Right.
or I could hopefully wake up and then have this appliance on me. Again, it's no cure.
Yeah.
I was like, it's going to be so hard. No one's going to want me. I'm never going to be able to get married. All these just things just coming to the surface.
Yeah.
She's like, but isn't trying to continue to live this way hard too? Because it wasn't an option. We push ourselves to there's no option, and there's the burnout and all
Yeah.
the things that come.
Yeah. And I think that's very common. I know that's part of my story is like you push until you don't have a choice. Your body doesn't let you have a choice anymore because you weren't able to hear it or listen or respond because of these different factors that are not really your fault, but you just keep going until your body's like, nope, this is you don't have a choice anymore.
All those signs are there, but you also
Hmm.
don't want to acknowledge that. And because we're used to dealing with hard thing after hard thing after hard moment after hard second,
You don't
those
have a
comes
framework. You don't have like a way of contextualizing, is this just another hard thing that I need to push through? Or is this a thing that I need to really listen to and be like, oh no, like that's one thing that I work on a lot with my clients is learning to be able to decipher that and understand and have that framework for themselves. But yeah, absolutely.
it is really hard because I do the same with my clients, but for ourselves. A whole different it's the knowing versus
Hmm.
the doing. Again, with the lived experience, it's helpful because this idea of we were kind of talking about this last time that if it was easy, if I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I just noticed that I should probably stop and take care of myself. No, it doesn't really work like that. It's not a switch. This is ingrained every second of your life to push through. So
Yep.
just knowing the difference and being able to allow yourself, because there are people around you also pressuring. It's not just
Yeah.
us putting it on ourselves. This came from somewhere and
Yep.
having to grieve that, right?
Hmm.
Not only grieving the illness, but how do we get here? How did we end up putting ourselves last every single time?
And in some ways, I find that grief is much harder, right? There's like when you lose something that's physical, there's a lot of grief to it, but also there's a way to kind of make it tangible. But like that internal loss of what could have been, that internal loss of dreams or hopes or what you thought things were going to be like, that all of that loss, I find oftentimes can be even harder to sit with and process and make sense with and allow yourself to fully feel, especially if you haven't had a relationship of safety in your body. And I'm really curious about that. You know, you've talked about your journey and how for so long you were very much at odds with your body, and it was a very negative relationship where you didn't feel like you could trust your body. You had some serious dislike around what it was doing to you and how it was hindering you and the pain and all of that, which is all makes complete sense. And on top of that, you have this underlying emotional thing of not feeling like you're worth and not feeling it's safe to relax and to be yourself. And I'm really curious, at what point in your life do you, if you were to remember back, when's the first time in your adult life that you remember feeling safe, fully safe to be in your body? Or has that happened for you yet?
No, that hasn't happened. And I think it's because there really hasn't been a situation where I've been in remission, because basically the next surgery may be my last. There's only so much they can do, and there's so much damage. When you add in the pulmonary emboli, that's just such a additional scary situation, because I don't have signs that's coming. Like a lot of people that struggle with it will maybe their feet, their legs will swell. Like there will be signs that there's a clot.
Yeah.
Then that gives you, not that, again, not that this is great, but it gives you a moment to be able to go
Yeah.
get some support and help. I don't have that. The second episode was just during a meeting. And this just shows you this too, is I'm in a meeting, there's probably 20 people in it. It's a big meeting. I thought I was having a heart attack and I didn't get up. And like I waited, I know. I waited.
We've talked about that freeze spawn
Oh
response.
yeah. Oh yeah. I can't leave. This meeting's so
Yep.
important. I also can't leave because that will be rude. Yet I had just thrown a bunch of clots through my heart, lodged in my lungs. And that's how big this is. That's why it's important we're talking about this, because when you feel like you can't even take care of yourself, when you think you're having like a heart attack or something, that's how big this is. That's why I think we're so passionate too, because we don't want people to feel like that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
And then the last episode that happened, it was like 2 years. I just, you and I were talking about, it's off, like as far as years. I was actually
Time is an illusion.
sitting in this very chair at this very desk. It was like 6 p.m. I'm doing client notes, and it felt like a vice, like came out of nowhere and was crushing my chest.
Yeah.
I'm like, amazing. I went to the ER. They, of course, look at me, and I don't look like I'm sick. I'm quiet,
Hmm.
being quiet, like
Yep.
I've been taught. I'm not
Yep.
yelling. So, what does that do? It puts me at the back of the line. And then I went up and said, I think I'm having a heart attack. Is there any way that I could get some help? Well, we'll get somebody to come out here and look at your heart rate or whatever. And that didn't show anything. So then I got to wait for another 3 hours before going out. And then also they were going to discharge me before the doctor was literally turned around to leave. And I said, so are you sure it's not pulmonary emboli? He's like, what? Because they have my records. He said, I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, well,
Could you check?
I guess we could do one more test before you leave. So then they
Okay.
do an
Yeah.
MRI. And so after he comes back and says, okay, yes, it's pulmonary emboli. Well, how many? That's my first question. How many are we talking here? He kept avoiding, he wouldn't answer me. Just tell me how many. I need to know how many. Didn't answer. So they put me on, there's two blood thinning medications that are supposed to be better because you don't have to check your blood as much when you're on the I never say it right, warfarin. I never say it right for some reason. They tried that I had an allergic reaction and it a back end
Fabulous.
emergency. I can't even see, like literally could not see, and that scared me really bad. I was getting
Yeah.
really sick and could not function. Then they tried the next one. Well, guess what? Yeah,
Surprise.
surprise, surprise. I had to go into an urgent care. And the doctor came in and she started kind of yelling at me. I was working, right? And in my room, of course. She's like, "What? How are you in here working right now?" I'm like, "Oh, because I got stuff to do." What do you mean? I don't think you know how serious this is. It looks like somebody took spray cans of paint and just went back and forth and emptied them across your lungs. I thought, well, that's why he couldn't count. There were
Mm.
too many.
And of course, he couldn't tell you too many to count.
Right.
Heaven
Yeah.
forbid he give you a direct answer.
He just ignored my. I think that was interesting to see the way I was handling it and the way she was handling it. There was such a gap.
Mm-hmm.
She was horrified and she doesn't even know all my history. She just knows
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And here I am like, okay, I got to get this work done. That was jarring a little
Yeah.
bit to see that difference.
I see that very consistently. And I know that was definitely part of my journey as well, is that without having that framework, without having that contextualization, when you have this history of just pushing through and just dealing with things and thing after thing, like until you have somebody who reflects back to you the seriousness of the situation, you're not able to fully recognize, oh, this is bad, and oftentimes it's not till later. You and I have talked about this, how at this point in your life, you look back at some of the things that you went through and you're like, that was so much worse than I thought it was at the time because you don't have that contextualization. So I just want to say, bless the people who come in hard and fast with the strong reactions.
People have said things before and I've just minimized because that's what you learn to
Yeah,
do.
it's
Like,
so
it's
much harder to
fine.
minimize it when they're
I'm
like, no,
okay.
this is a big problem.
It was the point in my life where I was actually took 5 seconds to be like, oh, she is freaking out. She's like, I don't think you understand. You could die any second. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've heard like the little things where I've heard the nurses when they think I'm sleeping at night, she's not going to make it.
Hmm.
There's been so many things. So many times women have to, and I'm not saying men, they do too, but I think women in particular, neurodivergent women, is like, again, we talked about like, it's your fault. Like somehow we're doing something on purpose
Yeah.
to harm ourselves, which is not true. No, we don't want to feel this way. And this idea, and I hate this, and I'm going to do an episode on it. When people say, well, that's for attention,
Mm.
it's a gut punch, right? You're having like a
I just want to put this out here. My opinion on that is if somebody is doing something like that for attention, then they need the damn attention. There's
let's give
something
it to
going
them.
on. Yeah. If something like that is happening where and I have very, very rarely encountered situations where someone was actually doing things for attention like that. So I just hate that phrase in general because
It is so
it's so unlikely. And if it is the case, it's because something is deeply wrong.
something is
It might not
wrong.
be what they're bringing to your attention,
They
but
need
something is
help.
deeply wrong and they do need the attention and they do need help.
We have learned to pretend we're fine. We say we're
Yeah.
fine, but when we say we're not fine, I think people then don't believe us.
Yes.
Even if we start to communicate more information about what's truly happening, the other
Yeah.
person's like, I remember when I would lose so much weight and I was really, really, really thin
Mhm.
that, oh, Holly, you look great.
You look great. Yep. Oh my gosh. I had that when I was pregnant too. I had hyperemesis gravidarum and I lost over 25% of my body weight.
But you
Um,
look
and,
great.
but I looked great. Yep. Lucky you, even though I'm like literally
I've actually
dying.
had people say that to me. Well, if I had that, I'd be skinny. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. This is like it's a living nightmare
Yeah.
24/7.
I think that just speaks
Yeah,
to the societal expectations of women to be thin and how deeply ingrained that is that oh, you're dying and your physical health is in the toilet and you literally could drop dead at any second, but at least you look good.
Unhelpful things from other people. I remember I
Yep.
worked with this woman who I thought was my friend. This is as an adult. She was really stressed out because her hair, she had no health problems that were diagnosed anyway, that
Yeah.
her hair was coming out more than before. And she said something about maybe it's low iron. And then as an autistic person, I'm like, oh, yeah, just get your blood drawn, see if it is, and then get an iron infusion. Like I get them all the time.
Mhm.
From that moment, she didn't like me anymore.
I
Because,
call that the switch. There's like a
yeah,
moment or like a face that they make when you're talking with somebody, and up until that point you've had like a positive interactions, it seems like it's going good, and then you say something or you do something that doesn't line up with the way that they perceive you. And then from that moment on, like everything is different in the way they interact with
but they
you.
don't tell
And
you.
but they don't tell you what it is. And
Yeah.
as an autistic person, like most of the time, even when I go back and I think about it, I have no idea what went wrong. I don't know what happened.
The only reason why I know is somebody else told me.
Unless
So
somebody
for,
directly explains
yeah,
what happened. I don't
big
know
shit.
what happened.
That's so confusing. I thought I was being helpful
Yeah.
because it was something that I had been getting for decades. I think she was feeling that I was minimizing it, maybe.
Very possible.
I wasn't trying to minimize her experience. I was trying to help.
Hmm.
I had to go to Vanderbilt to get a consult and I had to get an MRI there. It's like 2.5 hours from Knoxville or something. People knew I was sick. Where's Holly? She's in the hospital. It's
Hmm.
not that you can just go to work every day and somebody not notice that you're not there for a while. And this very, very lovely speech therapist who I just adore. She kept always asking me, Holly, if you need anything, let me know. And I was never even saying anything about being sick. Finally, it was so big for me to make this step. And I said, is it possible that you might want to go with me to
Oh.
Vanderbilt? I remember shaking because I rarely ask for help. And she's like, I would love to go with you.
Oh.
She was so sweet. And her name's Shelly. She's so nice. And I felt really supported.
Yeah.
And when I had gotten back, I had found out that the same person I said the iron infusion to said that it was ridiculous that I had asked Shelly to go with me and it was selfish to ask her to do that. And then I was trying to get attention. I'm like, wow, okay. So I asked for help. That's what
Yeah.
happens.
And it's such a big thing to be able to ask for and receive the support that you need. And it's something that it took me a long time to be able to do that. It takes my clients time to be able to do that. There's so many underlying factors that go into that for you to do that. And then to have essentially your worst fears
Yeah.
happen of someone that you had trusted to turn on you like that.
I did an
Trauma.
episode about help, Elizabeth, because people often say my kids or my students or whatever won't ask me for help. There's reasons not to. When I was younger, I was so scared to ever ask for help because if I did, then you get the same thing. You should be able to do this yourself or somehow less again if you
Yeah.
need help. Or someone, they say they're helping you, but it's actually causing more stress
Hmm.
the way they're helping, but then you can't say
Yeah.
the way you're helping is causing me more stress, then you're really in
Yeah.
trouble. I think that's why we just don't. There's so much history here, but I'm glad that I'm where I am now. Obviously, I mentioned just had a 6 hour infusion on Tuesday. I've had to get on with three different doctors today for three different things. It is a lot to manage, but I'm so thankful that I'm in a much better place.
What would you say is the biggest difference about your relationship with your body and your relationship to caring for and advocating for yourself now versus the Holly who was back when you were in college, say?
I didn't do much advocating at all
Mm.
until pretty recently. Because when you think about like I was
Hmm.
18, I'm
Yeah.
51 now. For example, today I've had some blood work that was way out of like left field, which is not good. And I got this feedback where labs look pretty decent.
Yeah.
And I'm going to respond to that and ask for some additional information. Is there something, that
Yeah.
needs to be happening? Because before I wouldn't have felt comfortable because they're the expert. I still really struggle with my worth, but I'm doing so much better now. I know where it comes from,
Yeah.
known how to help others with this since I can remember. But really doing my own work, it has been amazing,
Yeah.
especially I think in this past year. It's been hard. It's a different kind of hard.
Yeah. It's a
But I
different
think
kind of
it's
hard.
self-discovery, being more open. Like this, doing this podcast episode with you is just evidence of that, something that I
Yeah.
would have never done before. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that.
And I just want to call out a difference that you didn't consciously mention, but like the Holly that was in college was fully invested in these stories of no one's ever going to want you. You're never going to be able to be a mom. You're never going to be able to, have the life that you're envisioning. And, what you're sharing is that you are a mom, that you had a relationship and now that you're in a place to have another one, you're not thinking nobody's going to want me. You're thinking, oh, it's going to be annoying to try and explain all of these different parts of my life. But that's so different than everyone's going to reject me and I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life.
It's funny because I had that thought yesterday.
Hmm.
I will be alone for the rest of my life.
Ooh, so it's still living in there
Oh
somewhere.
yeah, no, it's there, but I catch it sooner.
Yeah.
You mentioned being a mom. Yeah, we adopted our two kids from foster care, and it's a very different parenting journey. Life has been different than what I had pictured when I was younger, but I'm so thankful for my kids and what I've learned. I'm thankful that I'm able to be with myself in some ways for the
Yes.
first time. And maybe there's a partner in my future. I'm going to keep reminding myself you want people to see who you are. It's not how much do I have to hide myself to make this happen. It's a massive shift
Yeah.
because we want autistic and ADHD kids to know their worth much sooner than we did. Their nervous systems and their supports and they're communicating their needs and asking for help. Those things can be different for them.
Yeah. And also, it's never too late. I work with clients who range from like 30 up to 60, and it's
Yep.
never too late to make that transition, to learn how to feel comfortable and safe being in your body, and to learn how to show up authentically. And it's just wherever you are is exactly the right place for you to be on that journey.
I love that because it is a journey and it is never too late. I'm hoping that this episode supports people in lots of different ways. And I know you have the same goal as well. We need to recognize how important the nervous system is, how important the body is, because this stuff for these kids, it goes somewhere. It's there.
Yeah.
If it's not coming out, it doesn't mean it's not there. It's there. It's just so internalized, and our bodies are not
Hmm.
meant to
To hold that.
hold that every moment too, right? Of
Yeah.
the day where you're trying to fit in, you're white knuckling it, you're so scared of saying anything wrong. It is constant stress.
Yeah. Yeah, which you just learn to kind of compartmentalize and block out. It's still happening in your body, but you kind of just like, that's irrelevant because I don't have a choice and I just have to keep going. The damage is still happening, right? It's still, your body is still taking the toll of that. And so being able to recover your system and expand your capacity so you can hold that without it being harmful for you and making those shifts is so important to both mental and physical health.
This was really such an important episode. And again, I want to thank you for being such a massive part of my next big step. Thank you so much. Well, I want my audience to learn more about you because that you do have a couple spots open at the moment. So if
Hmm.
you can talk about that.
Yeah. So the work that I do with neurodivergent women is to help them recover their nervous systems and expand their nervous systems. And I have a program that's called Sacred Creatrix. It's a dedicated one-on-one program where I work especially with neurodivergent women who are healers, creatives, moms. So I have a lot of therapists that I work with, or alternative medicine people that I work with, artists, authors, and then moms. And in that space, I'm able to really customize the approach and the work that we do so that it is exactly what that client is needing at that time. And we're able to go at the pace that's right for their nervous system. Because that's one thing about neurodivergent women engaging in all these different practices is either the healing approach that they're taking is either coming from just like one small angle that might have a little bit of effect, but it's not really creating lasting change. Or what's happening is they are not there are certain gaps that happen for neurodivergent women between what they're being told and being able to internalize that. And one of the biggest gaps is not feeling safe in your body. And as we pointed out in this episode, it can be really hard to have that, especially if you have chronic illness, if you have a history of chronic pain, if you are a highly sensitive individual. It's difficult to have that safety. But without that safety in your body, all these different techniques that work for other people that they're able to get results with, it's difficult for your body to fully internalize and access that. And so, building that safety, building that foundation of co regulation that we've talked about, and then going at the pace that your nervous system is able to handle, we are able to recover your nervous system and then expand it so that you are showing up authentically, you are showing up aligned in all the different areas of your life. And it's just a beautiful experience. I think I can say this, but it's not something I really talk about a ton. In my Sacred Creatrix one-on-one program, 100% of the clients who have come to me to work with me in that space have come to me with some form of anxiety, whether it's generalized anxiety or social anxiety. And when we're done working together, when we have moved through the system together and recovered their nervous system, anxiety is not something they experience on a regular basis anymore. It's just something that shows up for them occasionally to let them know, hey, something's wrong. And they are able to hear it and they're able to listen to it. And so I do have a few openings.
That's amazing. And it's important that we let people know it's available to them because I think that's part of the issue as well. It's okay, so now what? What does this look like now? I am also going to be shifting a little bit. I'm going to still have obviously the private practice and I'm going to see people full time, but I'm also going to be expanding and having more parent master classes and more continuing ed for therapists. The more we can get good information out to people,
Yeah.
the better. This is game changing, right?
It's
Like
life changing.
it's life changing.
That's the important part for me is seeing how doing this work completely shifts the way that my clients interact with their reality, the way that they show up. It doesn't just change their life, it changes their families. It changes how
Yes.
they're able to show up for their families. It changes how they're able to show up for their community. It changes what they're putting out into the world and how they are making shifts that are important to them. That it's just beautiful and powerful, and I'm honored every single time and awed every single time to witness that transformation and see what these incredible neurodivergent women are capable of when they're not stuck in survival mode still
Right.
for years and decades.
Exactly. And I love that too. I feel the same way. A lot of times these women, we weren't given that.
Yeah.
It's never too late to help ourselves, never too late to help our kids. And that's why these conversations are so important. Thank you, Elizabeth, so much. I will definitely have the link below so people can get a hold of you and see if they're able to work with you in some of those open spots.
I appreciate that. And I look forward to meeting anybody who feels like that would be a supportive and a good place for them to grow in the next phase of their journey. And I just want to reiterate that I feel honored that you asked me to be here and to witness you sharing your story and being so vulnerable and open about your experiences, because it does matter. Representation matters. Being able to see someone else who has gone through these experiences and understands what it feels like, even though each person is different in the way we experience things and the things that we feel are different, to see that and to feel that, and your willingness to be so raw and vulnerable about it is incredibly powerful. And I honor you for that.
I really appreciate it. There's something I want to mention. We just never know what someone else is holding, even our kids.
Yeah.
We may ask them about the day, but you might get that fine answer because that's what we've been taught in society to say. Like, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? Oh, hanging in there.
Mhm.
That's what we say. The more we understand that other people are carrying these things, and to make it safe for them to say, this is hard. Because these types of chronic illnesses, I think, especially for women, usually no one's bringing you a casserole for that. I mean,
True.
it's
I was bedridden for about 2 years, and I can't think of a single time during that
nobody
where
brought you a
somebody brought me a
casserole.
casserole.
No one bought me a casserole. Understanding that how we can show up is really important for the people in our lives. And it matters that they know there's someone safe that they can go to and they can talk to and that's going to believe them.
Yeah,
Because sometimes it's
absolutely.
not fine.
Yeah. And I think part of that, I know for me, my ability as a mom to decipher that in my child and to be able to attune to his nervous system and what he was experiencing, regardless of how he was masking or regardless of what he was saying, my ability to do that drastically improved when I developed my own ability to hear my own body and to recognize what my body was telling me, and to be able to feel in my body what regulation, like true regulation, felt like, not just being calm or peaceful, but like truly feeling safe in my body. It made it so much clearer to me when my child is not experiencing that and when they are. And so that's been a huge part of my journey and my work. Is I know that all of the things that I'm doing for myself are directly impacting my ability to show up, to hear, to support my child in the way that he needs it.
If we don't check in, we are more likely to repeat
This is
our,
how
our
generational trauma
childhood.
happens,
I
right?
don't want it to
Yeah.
keep going. But thank you again, Elizabeth. This was super helpful. And I
Yeah.
am sure that we'll be chatting again soon.
I'm sure we will. Enjoy
Better.
talking with you.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.
If you found this podcast helpful, I greatly appreciate it if you could take a second to give it a 5-star review. With your positive feedback, I can continue bringing you free, valuable information. As an extra thanks to you for sticking around, there are special gifts waiting for you in the show notes. You'll find links to free resources on supporting neurodivergent kids, so come on down to the show notes and get your free resources. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc Moses Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition, or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.